To Talks with Tony. Been a little bit of a hiatus. I've been on the road and doing a lot of things. The groups with Talks with Tony, the Patreon, i.e. the tier 3 group, the remote viewing group, which has basically 2 phases, like the advanced group on Sundays and the beginners on Thursdays, as well as trying to keep up and keep the tier 2 people up to speed with the quick Q&As have really been the bulk of my filming time. And so I had a few guests that kind of rescheduled. I got some really good guests coming up. But I just want to let you guys know that I'm still doing this, but the live groups are really where it's at. The remote viewings, I found we've had great success with those, and I intend to put out more remote viewing information and things along those lines, especially with the subject matter of today's show was a trip from last week. I got some water on me. A trip I took last week with Tyler Koala. Hello, Tyler.
Hey, how's it going?
Hey, really good, man. Welcome to the show. Thanks for doing this with me. And it's kind of a recap of what we did last week, which for me was mind-blowing. So absolutely earth-shattering.
It was big. It was like I was just saying off camera, like what we did, all these people coming forward with memories, but what you did, but in particular, but what we did was something that no one really gets a chance to do. Go revisit a place where you were taken during the 20 and back. And not only revisit, but I mean, we were on site, and I don't want to say too much. I don't know how much you want to share, but I mean, we were there. Man. It was an adventure. Let's just say that. And watching you have the emotional reaction, that I'm glad, we're filming this for a documentary as well. And I'm glad I caught a lot of that on camera, because that is, you can't fake that. You can't fake the emotional reaction. So when the audience or anyone who you're trying to get this message across to sees that, that's real. That's real. When you're reliving those memories.
So I looked at it, and again, always my take on this when I do these trips. I did Seattle last month, and I'm always planning, hoping to go to Peru and have some kind of reunion there if I can figure out a way to get into that area. But for one, I'm always looking for proof, man. I'm always looking for the skeptic people to take this to the next level, take my testimony to the next level. So the world really needs to know, but they're not going to listen to me if I don't have proof. I did find proof here. I did. There are things, but again, there are things that I'm calling out in the past that we go and discover on site. And luckily we filmed some of it. It's not the proof that people want. People want paperwork. And I have found some things that support my entire testimony, the dates and places. But beyond everything, the emotional reaction this time it really wasn't pain, even though at first it was like the first instant, it was kind of emotionally painful, but really there is always it's hard to explain. It's hard to convey this to people, but I always have the hope. I literally have the hope that it's false. People are like, man, you're schizophrenic. It's a screen memory. It's blah, blah, blah. It's this and that. You're a LARP, whatever it is. I'm always in the back of my mind thinking, that'd be great if it was like that. But what happened was we went to a place that I didn't expect. We went to a portable, one of the buildings there, and I had I did not recognize it from the outside. I think they might have painted it. But I did not recognize that as the portable. I really didn't. From the outside, I had no clue. And I just thought I was going to walk up and see some other portable, and peeked inside. And lo and behold, when I looked inside, it was the place that I was during that time. And all the memories flooded back, and the realization flooded. And you know what I mean? I went, oh my God, it's real. Like, oh my God. And I had this happen in Seattle years ago. And this was, profound. Neither one of them was any less profound than the other. The reaction is, but then I had time to kind of get over it. And, this time it's like you go there and it's true. So thankfully, I was at your conference for the last 2 years.
Hmm.
And I know you planning on having another one next year in May in Grafton, right? So
Yep, same place.
that's going to be called Rebels of Disclosure. Is that right?
That's right.
Beautiful conference, and anybody watching, please come on out. We'll be there. Well, I said this, whether I'm a speaker or not next year, I'm still going. So I will still be there because all my friends are there. You know what I mean? Like it's a really easy to get along with people. We're all of the same mind and people that are up to speed on everything. So the conferences are the number one source for places like that. So I just wanted to plug your conference. If anybody
Thanks.
watching, please head out there and you can find it, I'm sure, on Journey to Truth. What is the
Yeah,
website? It's
we don't even have the website up yet. We're still working out the details and we're building the website and all that. But as soon as we have all that, people will know. It'll be out.
I know it's way early and it'll end up on your main site. So
Yeah.
I'm just
Mhm.
plugging that. So,
Yeah.
but this time we went, man, and thank you for doing this. Originally Brad Olson went out there years ago and got on site, and he was doing a FaceTime and he was showing me around. And again, a lot of the stuff that we found wasn't obvious. So I had no clue when we went out there, and Brad was going to come with me this time, but he had engagements. Brad never sits still. He's always got something in the pipe. And
Hmm.
I really wanted to go out there and get footage before this upcoming conference in Orlando, the GSIC, Galactic Spiritual Informers Connection Conference. And I really wanted this footage for that so I can present. So every time it's the same story over and over. And I always want to add something new to it so to be relevant, and again, have proof, because I think that the 20 and back stuff is being swept under the rug slowly, like a limited hangout, but they're doing it slow. They're not going to jerk it away and say this is that, but they're slowly kind of weaning the public's eye, the community. It's not even the public, it's our community. They're weaning us away.
Right.
And
There's a
so
lot, there's a lot of stuff that's coming forward that's really hard to believe in right now as far as the 20 just SSP topic goes. Not saying that the people that are speaking aren't telling the truth, but when you're getting so far out there, you gotta keep in mind we're used to the 20 and back. We're used to this information. However many years we've all been, diving into this, so we like it all makes sense to us. We've had time to figure it out in our minds, but there's new people every day coming into this community awakening. And to be quite honest, we need to keep it going because we need to reach the new people and the skeptics, so to keep it alive. And I think the only way to do that is doing what we're doing and going on site, boots on the ground, getting that, I mean, tangible evidence. I mean, it's maybe not exactly what everyone wants to look for, or what everyone is looking for, but you're not going to satisfy everyone. Everyone has their own version of what they want evidence to be. And even if you show them a photo, they're like, oh, that's fake. So it doesn't matter. You're not going to make anyone happy. So, bottom line is you're bringing more to the table than pretty much anyone at this point by going around to these spots. And I honestly think it's incredible that I even get to be a part of it. And that's why, we're at the early stages of this documentary that you're going to be a part of. But we're really trying to reach the skeptics and reach the new people and give it credibility in a way that even the skeptics have to look at and say, huh, I
that's right.
wonder, and that's where we're at. Yeah.
That's always been my thing. I'm like, look, man, you guys can explain it some other way, but I'm calling it how I see it, what I remember. And there's things you can't explain away, the series stuff and the salt. Um, but again, I went to Seattle and I got plenty of evidence there. And like I go to these places and there's no real smoking gun, but this one really was a wealth of stuff. Fortunately, like I said, I was at your conference 2 years ago. I have a clip that you sent me when I was on stage talking about INYOKERN. So but in the clip, I talk about the buildings there they used to be portables. I remembered 3 portables. So I remembered a portable that we slept in. We had cots, and sometimes they did experiments there. They had other things that since I've been there, we've returned, I've remembered much more about it. So the memories have come, and they're unsettling, but they're not unwelcome. So it's like a healing thing. To remember a traumatic event is the way to get past it and to work through it. Work at least the stage I'm at. But I was on stage at your conference 2 years ago, and I know I've been through dozens, and it's a lot of my interviews I can't find, and I don't want to pour through every interview to take a 20-second clip.
This is a really great thing of evidence. Those 3 buildings is where it was. Back then they were portables. They were condemned after and replaced, and those are buildings that Brad showed me. They're not portables anymore, but they're still classified as a California Special District.
They don't exist. They don't technically exist. So I remember 2 big portables that we were in, and then a nurse's portable. And the other portable had a tile floor, and they had chains hanging from the ceiling, like a swing set. And we would go in there, and they'd put us in it, and we had helmets that, motorcycle helmets with electrodes. And we got shocked as the movie played. We watched crazy movies. And then when we were done, we'd go back and we'd debrief us. And I said this in many older interviews, that he had a little office where he'd debrief us, a cubicle. And we'd sit in the chair on one, and then he'd call us in one by one. Like he would take 3 of us. We could go to bed, lay in our cot, but he would say, you, and you come on. And we'd sit and wait in the chair. Then he'd pull one in and ask us questions at the end of the day. How do you feel? How did that make you feel? What do you like? He was gauging the drugs he was giving us, or what the experience. He had a book, right, a manual that was doing that. Anyhow, I called that out long ago and remembered it, albeit not clearly. So then we went to, I'm going to put a share screen, and I'm going to go over some still pictures, and we got some drone pictures, and let's do this. So I'm sharing this with my share screen with the world. So this was INYOKERN. So we got some footage up higher. So over here on the left is where I remember that being. So here's a better shot of it. These buildings here, these 3 buildings, I hope you guys can see my cursor, but these 3 little barn sheds, whatever you want to call them, are classified as a special district. It's California Special District. And I have slides I presented on that. I remember the whole thing. I remember walking on this hot pavement in the summer. We had socks. We'd walk around in our socks, and we'd walk from one to the other. Even at night, this stuff hurt your feet. Like even in the middle of the night, they'd wake us up. This wasn't there back then. Let me go back here. Here's another good look. But I remember right here in this area was the portable that we slept in, and we would get out on the porch, go this way, and we would walk over here, and there was the other portable that we'd watch the movies in. And then up here was the nurse's station. There was a kitchen and like a first aid place in it. She was a nurse, and she would come over and help the doc, and he was in and out. They'd plug us into movies and let it play all day long, and they'd leave, and they'd come back for lunch, and we'd go bathroom break, and then lunch, and then they'd put us right back on there, and then they'd pull us down, they'd feed us. I don't even really remember eating. I remember sandwiches. I remember anyhow. But these are some stills of what we found there. I don't want to go. And this is more towards the other area. I remember this bridge, and I told Brad, I was like, this is where those rocks are. But really, those rocks were up here that I remembered, the grapefruit size rocks. And I don't think you can see it in one of these other ones. Let's see, here's a good picture. This little spill ditch, I thought I could crawl down and get under the fence over there. It went that way, and that's where it went under that bridge. Gosh, I'm kind of screwing up here. That's where it went under that bridge. You got over here. This was that spillway. And I thought I could get over and get under this one and hide under one of these bridges, like hide here and then run over here and hide and then run out and then make my escape into these hills into the west. That's where they go. We found out, me and you, we went there. Did that, I got to ask, did that bug you in the first place to go out there to the west?
No,
out in
not
the woods at all?
even, not in the slightest. I was excited. I mean, you sold me whenever you said, we're going to the Twilight Zone. I'm like, I'm in.
That was what I said. And you know what though? It was.
We were staying on basically like a compound. We were in between military bases. It was a military town. We even had a warm welcoming when we went to breakfast. I don't know if you want to tell that story, but
No, I want you to tell it. I want you to say that because I mentioned it to some other people, but and the more I think about it, the more we should have been scared of what happened. You and I should have been terrified for what happened.
well, that's what saved us. We weren't, and
That's right.
that's why we did it, and that's why you don't live in fear. But yeah, so it's a military town. Jets, Chinook helicopters. I mean, all day long. Air traffic. There's guard stations. Everything. It doesn't even feel normal. The town feels weird. It's almost like a simulation. How many times did you remark on the town? Like, this is
Oh, the
weird.
vibe. It was like out of a movie. It was a Twilight Zone movie. And even the people had a demeanor
Yeah.
like the Stepford Wives
Yeah. It's like
body language that they were
everyone's like running on a program. Yeah. And so we decide to go to a diner, Christie's Diner, I think it was, the very first morning. And I think we're the first two people there, and or no one else was there anyway. And we park and walk in the door, and I guess he's the owner, the guy that worked there, the waiter. Um, he greeted us, and he had the table set already. Table set. He's standing up, like waiting for us to come in the door, and he's like, "What do you say? Have a seat, guys." He just said, like, "Have a seat, guys," like he was waiting for us.
He was waiting with his arms like this. When we walked
Yeah,
in the door, he was like, "Here you go, guys. Have a seat."
yeah. Have a
Said,
seat.
"This is you." And
And
there was another guy way in the back, and there was somebody sitting at the bar, I think, at the they had like a breakfast
yeah,
bar.
the guy at the bar was watching us the whole time, which we'll get into that. But I and then I said, it's almost like you knew we were coming. And he kind of just smirked and he was like, "Have a seat," like the waiter.
Yeah, he
And
didn't acknowledge you. He just
yeah. And it was so weird. And we sat down and we looked at each other. It was crazy. Then that guy at the bar who had the sunglasses and the hat, he looked like a Luis Elizondo kind of. He had the black t-shirt
like
and he
stocky
wasn't
guy.
eating. He wasn't eating or drinking. He was just sitting there, and he was watching us. And eventually, I got a picture of him, and I'll even send that picture to you if you want to post it in the post editing.
I don't have his permission, so you know what I
Right,
mean. Like I don't want to
right,
give. I would put the picture in there, but I don't have his permission to put it recording, so
sure,
I
yeah,
won't do
I
that.
understand that. Yeah,
But yeah, he was staring. He was clearly staring. At first, you think everybody's. You and I I had our guard up anyway.
right,
We knew what we were going into. Even when we left the airport and we were driving out 3 hours, we knew what we were getting into. But he was absolutely fixated on you and I. He watched
yeah.
us the whole time, and
The whole time. Yeah, and more people came in after us, and he didn't set the table for anyone else. It wasn't like it was a normal procedure for the other people.
yeah, he just said, "Hey, go ahead and have a seat anywhere," and then he took them. But he had two menus and two silverwares waiting, and he had his arms like that, like it was the most
Like we didn't get a choice where we wanted to sit. He's like, "You guys are sitting here."
in my mind. I thought we should not sit there.
Right.
Because I walked in front of you, and I thought we shouldn't. And I turned around, and I looked at you, and I said, "What do you think?" And you said, yeah, let's go. Go ahead. Oh, why not? Right.
Yeah.
So we'll just
Right.
go into it. And I was a little nervous. I gotta admit, when I had my coffee, I had my first drink of coffee. I was like,
Right. Yeah. We're like, who's in
what?
here? What? It was so obvious that my personal opinion is that they wanted us to know that they knew we were in town. That's
Right.
just all. That's bottom line. That's the way I feel about it.
That's right. They were letting us know. And then the other thing is when we were talking about the place to eat, we had a conversation about it back in there where we were staying.
Yeah.
And so whenever we went out to eat after that, we changed our mind at the last minute. We would
Right.
say, let's go get a burrito, and then we'd go to the other place. We'd go to the pancake place instead.
Right.
So we never telegraphed where we were eating after that, and it didn't happen again.
Yeah. That's very true.
So
And
I'll go back. Oh, go on.
I was just gonna say, I mean, even before I left in St. Louis, I had some suspicious stuff, and I don't play victim to that stuff, but things I just can't notice or I can't ignore. Um, I almost got in a head-on collision the day of the leaving for the airport, and a guy ran a red light, and he missed me by this much, and he was so close to me, I could see the patch on his sleeve, and it was a law enforcement patch. And when I got to the airport, there was a guy dressed exactly the way the guy was dressed at the diner, but he was skinnier. And he, at 3 different times, I caught him looking at me, and I eventually took a picture of him. He wasn't just looking at me. When I got up to the restaurant, he followed me to go eat. Like It was wild. And I'm like, man, I don't want to be paranoid, but who wears sunglasses in the airport? Like, it was so obvious. He looked like a Fed boy with a satchel. I mean, anyway, uh, it was just interesting. And then whenever we got there and when we walked into that diner, it was like, okay, it's on.
It was
You know?
obvious. It wasn't a
And
that instance of the diner was not something that you could explain away. You
no,
just can't.
and when we pulled up to INYOKERN, they opened the gate for us.
That's right. And you said go in there. I remember you saying, and I said, I'm afraid they won't let us out. We won't get out. We don't,
That
and
had
plus,
trap written all over it.
yeah, it was weird.
Yeah.
I I was I was in a panic state of mind the whole time when we were on the base on INYOKERN. We were in the airstrip. It wasn't because I was afraid of something, but it was because that it hit home that it was real. Like the memory, like when I said the sunrise, watching the sun come up before the day before we went, when the sun, I went, oh God, exactly. I remember it because the weather is always clear there. That's why they have that's why they have an air base there. And it was the same lighting, the same everything, the sound of the jets flying over. It was like, I remember the F-18s were flying over all day long and going on INYOKERN. So I was I was already in a confused state of mind. If I would have been maybe in your shoes, like with a friend and not been detached, I would have wanted to go ask questions and, hey, tell me about this, like been kind of a sleuth about it. But honestly, I felt like just returning there was theft enough,
Yeah. Yeah.
But
It,
so I'm going to show a video. I'm going to
yeah.
show a
Go for it.
video of it. And let me make sure I click the share sound button on it. See here. Oh, that works. Zoom USA computer.
If you were to go ask questions anyway, the people working there today, they'd probably be clueless, I mean, unless somebody was there waiting for us, but potentially.
There. So
There you go.
can you hear me?
I can hear you.
So I
Yep.
did some computer stuff and it says my default microphone changed and other things have changed.
You sound the same. Sounds good.
So we filmed this, and this is an unedited version. So it'll be.
So here we are
later.
in INYOKERN Airport. So after my abduction, they put me through a process. I woke up with no memory of where I came from, and it was here. They were portables.
Reality of roadside filming.
There were portables where there were buildings that I found later were classified as special district classification. So they're out of the jurisdiction of law enforcement. But I remembered that, and I was put through a trauma-based mind control program. And I remember the mountains to the west and the outcropping over there that I always would plan taking these trails. You can see trails going up. And I thought if I could make it to some of these spires of stones, I could hide. Like I'd seen Hardy Boys movies. And then driving this road here was weird because I drove it in 1982. We rode on a bus when we left here to China Lake in 1982. And this is my first time, and I can prove that I've ever been here. And it's just a surreal feeling. It feels like home, but it's not.
Look at that. It's okay. Tech diff.
Huh. Interesting.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a lot more to that. It's 3 minutes long. Well, I can I can resend it to you.
Okay. Well, let me see here. I want to kind of show if I can find the one that has what I want, the buildings. Sorry, people, I'll cut all this out. I'm guessing I'm gonna have to cut this out later. Canyon buildings. Here it is. I'm keep it real, man. Oh, and plus I like not editing if I can help it.
Right.
So I think most of the people, I got a small audience of friends, core. So this is our results. So thank God you came with me, Tyler. The red area is the places that are classified the special district. Like I said, I remember a portable here and a portable here and another portable here. And this portable, I had no idea. I thought this is probably a newer one that they bought, several portables. I did not recognize this portable from the outside whatsoever, but there's a portable there. And also there's a burnt one here. So I always, in my clip, the portables were condemned and to be destroyed. And it looks like it was this one. And then here I recognized the hardware on the top of this one. It was the kitchen. The nurse actually had two. These are campers. That one was the, so I can zoom in here. One is the hospital one, and the other was the kitchen that had the coolers in it. They had refrigerators. So let's go. So we did make it into a portable. And at this point, I want to say to people, anybody watching this, firstly, there were no trespassing signs. Secondly, it was open. At this point in the video, when we walked it, we pulled over. This is right after they opened the gate for us. They opened the gate, and then we didn't drive in, and they closed it. And we drove up here. We drove another 100 feet and pulled over. And I said, let's go look at that portable. Right? Was it? I'm pretty sure it was my idea. Yeah. And at this point, I had no recollection of this portable. This did not look familiar to me. I remember the porches were kind of beefy on the ones we were on. They were big porches like that. But at this point, I thought this was just a different portable. That was after the fact. I did not suspect this in any way, shape, or form to be one of the buildings that I remembered.
The film's going pretty slow for some reason.
It's looking good over here.
Okay.
I'm thinking, get it together, man. But that was it. First glance, I knew it. I absolutely knew that was the building.
See?
That's the portable.
So when I was abducted by ETs and ended up on a base somewhere, and they told me they wanted to borrow my consciousness for 20 years and explained everything and got my consent. They did a test on me, on my genetics, to see if I was compatible with what they wanted to do. And the test came back positive. They said, yep, barely. You get to go once. And they said, go ahead. And they laid me down and they stuck something in my face, in my eye. And I saw stars, and I woke up right there. This is the next thing I saw after that. I woke up sick, feeling with no memory of who I was or where I'd come from. There were cots. I hope you can see my cursor. There was a cot here and a cot here with another kid in it. And there were IV bags, the IV stand. And the nurse was, he's up, and the doctor came from on here, and I could hear him talking to other kids in the other room. And he came and gave me a medical examination, reflexes, everything like that. So this is the very first place I woke up, and it's something that I was freaking out at this point. In the other room were the cubicles. So he had a desk here. He had like a poster. He had a desk with a stack of the manuals, and he had a desk and a chair. Then he had 3 chairs, either here or here, that we'd wait in, and over here he had more books. I think there was like a dresser. That's where our clothes were. And that's where we would be. And then this room was all cots for the kids, all the way up to the wall there. So there were cots along the side. And in the beginning, I'm gonna let it play. In the beginning, the cots, there were IV bags. But after they got rid of the IVs, they scooted them together, and then they moved me out from the hallway into the room with the rest of the kids, which I was happy about.
It was just like this. If it wasn't this one, it was one exactly like it, the same layout. See, it cots here.
So at this point, I was in shock. I'm gonna tell. I don't know, how were you feeling at this point, Tyler? While I got you on the show,
It was weird. First of all, I couldn't believe that we were in there. I was actually surprised that you went in. That surprised me. I didn't know if you would be too scared. I fully expected you to look in that window and said, all right, let's get out of here. But you were like, I'm going in. I'm like, okay,
Yeah.
I just had the camera, and I was just trying to keep up, and I was like, I could feel your emotion. That was the biggest thing that I remember. Like the energy was weird. Like it was like I could feel you reliving those memories and just walking behind you. It was pretty surreal. And like the video, like you said, after watching it back, the video doesn't do it justice. Like it felt intense when we were in there, like we were doing something wrong. You watch it back, it just kind of looks like we're scrolling around through an empty or strolling around through an empty building, but it was felt like so much more than that.
Yeah. Well, it did to me. I was like I said, at this point, I was in a state of shock right now.
Right.
And then I realized we were trespassing. I thought I better get some. I wanted to slow down and do a better job. I wanted to explore it, but we were ultimately somewhere that is closed off. I mean, it wasn't locked; it was open. You could walk right up. There's no signs. So, an argument could be made that we are not trespassing. That this is a public place. So, and we didn't disturb anything. We took some pictures and got out of there. So, if this show leads to trouble, then I guess I'll answer to it. But this place is real. If they didn't want us walking around in their old derelict 1982 portable, they shouldn't have ducked kids.
Right.
But up here, you had the nurses station. There was another desk. And over to the right, I said, "Let's get out of here." And this is when I was like really freaking out. I just closed it. Yeah.
We were never here.
Yeah, that's what you were saying. And
besides them watching us right now from satellite.
Yeah, you were making light of the situation, and it's like I was still in shock.
That's me always, and I wasn't trying to take away from the moment for you, but
oh, not at all. And you weren't. Like I said, I said there, like I feel like I want to throw up. I said, "Oh my God." The thing.
Well, go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say that was it. It led to the reality of it all. I mean, it made it real. So let me see here. I'll just let this play while we talk. That's some drone footage, I believe.
And you know what's interesting? Thinking back on this trip, like it was almost too easy. Like it's like we didn't even see anyone, first of all. Like besides them opening that gate, like I don't know. It's like they were allowing us to be there almost.
Well, you know what though? So what I've found, so after I got home, so I'm like, I got to package this. I got to present this on stage. I'm going to be in front of a better part of 1,000 people next week. And I want to explain this. And so I've been doing research on this, and I thought, man, if this is real, there's got to be a paper. Pardon my language, there's a fucking building. There's the building, right? So there's got to be a paper trail somewhere. What I found out is that the Project Grill Flame ended at the same time that I said it ended. So I was there the best I could. I was abducted. It was April 15th. 17th was the day of the picture in my book. April 15th, I believe, 1982 was when I was abducted. So I have to look at that again. I'm probably saying it wrong. But sometime between the 18th or the 15th and the 17th, it was a Thursday, was the night I was taken. And so I probably woke up here on a Monday. It was probably that following Monday that I woke up here. And here we see clear, there's the evidence. It was a United States Naval Ordnance Testing Station.
It even says experimental.
Yeah.
You know what's funny is like, if anything that we should have been scared of is this, like flying a drone in an airport.
Yeah.
Like I can't even, like you were like, yeah, I'm not going to fly over the fence, and you fly directly up to this. Like you couldn't have gotten any closer to this building. It's funny.
Well, it wasn't in airspace, and let me be clear for anybody watching. The drone was like 100 feet up, so no plane, and it wasn't in any airspace. So they let you fly. The drone will not fly
in a restricted
somewhere.
space. Yeah,
because we tried again in Vegas, and we were near the airport. It won't even take off.
Right.
So back to why they let us is that I'm gonna say there's some other drone footage I'd like to get here. Let me do this one. So this was a little bit higher. I think this was like 200 feet up, and I'm just going to get some footage for the hills in the distance. By the way, we solved that too when we went out there. If I would have escaped and made it out to those mountains, I would have surely died. It's a very inhospitable environment. I wouldn't have made it far, put it that way. But what I found is that the project, so, and then I remember ending up in Peru right after New Year's of 83, because kids had 1982 shirts and they were making fun of them. So that's, I always remembered that. I was like head on, I didn't know what was happening to me when I got dropped off in Peru. And so that's kind of I was so afraid of being something bad happening that I remembered that kind of clearly. And I remember kids having a 19, those shirts that have the 8 and the 2. And so it was right after New Year's. So it was January of 83 that I was in Peru. So I find out that the funding for Project Grill Flame, this was a subcontracted from that. So not only did Project Grill Flame took place in Fort Meade and other places out east, but they subcontracted it. They were eager to sell to individuals and other organizations that had type 3 security clearance, and they were selling it. They were contracting out the services. And so and obviously I was a space-based asset. I was from the secret space program. So I was probably a higher security level 5 or something. So I found evidence for that, paperwork for that, but it ended right then. So we were the last batch. So us that went through this with the research from the Grill Flame, we were the last batch until they discontinued that program. And don't think that that's discontinued because was a failure. They discontinued it because they said that INSCOM had the monopoly on remote viewing. And so they wanted the other branches to have access to it. So they renamed it to Project Center Lane, which put the technology in the center. And then they moved it to Leavenworth, and all the other branches could access the data and train their own remote viewers and their own psychoenergetics. So psychoenergetics is what happened from this program. That was what happened, is they did not only remote viewing, but psychoenergetic research into bending spoons and supposedly walking through walls, and remote influencing. That's what we call nowadays remote, but basically perturbing things at the target site. So not only remote viewing a target, but actually like pulling a trigger or moving a pen or perturbing or making somebody sick. So that's another thing. They were, you can make somebody sick, you can perturb behavior at a distance when you have. So they perfected that
Now,
and sold it.
just so the audience is clear, it was moved to Kansas City.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
So
Leavenworth,
yeah.
Fort Leavenworth, Kansas City. So what I'm saying is the contractors that were this. So we were kids that they believed were clones. So I'm going to stop the share so you guys can see us. What I'm saying is the people in that airport had no idea what was going on there. So when you said nobody came out, they don't know that's an old derelict portable it was an administrative building. I found other pictures of it. I'm going to have to edit that in too. But so then I looked at it back in, when you look on Google Earth, you can go back in time, right?
Mm-hmm.
So you can go back to 1990, for instance. And what happened was, when you go back to the 1980s, there's nothing. It's too blurry. You can't see what was there. But in 1994, that portable was moved over by the airfield. It stayed on site. It was there on the earliest picture. Then they built the addition of a building and they moved the portable to where it sits today. The other 2 portables that we showed were the nurses station, those campers, and that one that was burnt and destroyed were there from 94 on. So 94, I think, is the earliest images I've got.
Mm-hmm.
So I found those 2. That's going to be in my presentation as well. So it's supporting evidence. It's not a smoking gun. But that's all the buildings. I had no expectation when we were planning this trip. I did not expect to find any of the buildings, not one. I knew that those buildings had been built in the area, and I was just trying to walk it and kind of smell the place and get the vibe check the place and kind of see. And I did get a lot of memories back. I do remember much more now.
Right. And not only, it's interesting how it happened. The portable happened first, but it wasn't, the other 2 didn't happen until the last day when we went back for more drone footage. And we just happened to go down some off the trail road, and then we ended up on another road that drove us past the nurse's station and the doctor's office, or wherever, the lunchroom, right?
Yes.
And then that's also when we connected the dots about the condemned one that was the frame.
Let me see if I have something in here with that. Yeah. So there. So this is how I got the memory, is I remembered the hardware up here. So
We
I was
would-
like, it wasn't air conditioning, it was for the refrigerator. It was a refrigeration unit. They had a big freezer in here. And I think this was the air conditioning. So she hung out in here. This was the kitchen. And then this one was like the hospital. So when we got hurt, we went in there. There were kids got burnt, and they were torturing us. I'm gonna put it bluntly. There were kids that got broken arms. I got my arm dislocated. We went there. That was the triage. So we would get taken into here, and the nurse was in there, and she'd fix us up. There were also towels and napkins and things in there that we would go get. And then this was the kitchen. But when we
Well,
drove
we
by,
would-
that's when I remembered it.
Yeah, and like, but what I'm trying to say is, if we hadn't, it's interesting how we're guided, how people are guided, because the way we ended up on this road to drive past these on the way out, we didn't even notice these the first trip or two trips, you know. So it was really interesting, and that's also when we connected the dots about the burnt, the foundation,
The burnt
condemned
one. Yeah, I got a good picture off of Google Earth of it that shows it. Basically, it's the chassis. The other thing I did on Google Earth was I measured the length of the places that I remember it being, which is about 140 feet. And I measured the frame that was burnt of the trailer, and then the one that is there, and then those other two, to make sure that they could all fit in that area, and they do. It did check out.
Yeah.
So they're like 52 by 38 and 36 by 50. So it's 100, and then another 40 feet for those two campers. So that does all fit.
Yeah.
But that was it. So inside that video, inside the trailer, which who knows, I might be evidence against us. We get in trouble, some federal offense. But that's a public place, and like I said, there were absolutely no trespassing
No
signs
signs.
there, and the
Yeah.
door was wide open. It was not locked.
Yeah, I don't think
Um,
there's anything to worry about there. But the whole
But
trip, it was wild, man. It was wild, and we saw evidence of other underground installations too, and just driving around. I mean, the one was so obvious. They had the U-Haul truck. It had the Evergreen cargo, the shipping container.
They had trucks parked outside of an abandoned house, an abandoned mansion too. I mean, the thing looked like it was 10,000 square
Yeah.
feet with the windows busted out of it, and then a radar array right above it, and on a hill
in the middle of nowhere. Yeah.
20 miles from anything. Right, a radar array next to a giant building with box fans parked out front. So it was obviously an entrance it was obviously exactly what an entrance to an underground base would look like. You would
Right.
think it would look like, and it's like they weren't even trying to hide it. It wasn't
Well,
even.
They know people who aren't in this field aren't ever going to question that. People are going to drive by that every day, and
Mhm.
they're just going to think, "Oh, military. That's it. That's it." They
Right.
don't have to explain themselves. They're not obligated to explain themselves. And even when people like us do connect the dots and we see through the veil and we understand what's going on, what are we going to do? Like, we can't
Yeah,
drive up there
exactly.
and say, "Hey, stop."
Yeah, let me
Yeah.
open this. Let me see where this elevator shaft is to goes
Right.
down. So it's going to be secured as well. I imagine if you poke the hornet's nest enough, somebody's going to show up, and
Right.
you're going to get in trouble. I think we're flirting with it right now. Like I said, I'm heavily researching. I'm using the CIA declassified documents, which are perfectly legal for me to look at, but I've got a list of names that are involved with what was going on back then. And the interesting thing, and like I said, I'm gonna for people in Talks with Tony, I am going to be presenting more of this information in the coming months. But the program that I was in started out as a remote viewing program, and it morphed into something very much else. And they called it psychoenergetics. And so along those lines, I've already uncovered a few other things that are going to make remote viewing a little easier. Like, well, I mean, I'll save that for later, but I'm already uncovered a lot of things and remembered things from what I went through back then of the technology that they were doing. So there are a few things that I want to do. It opens the door to an extremely advanced version of remote viewing. And tier 3, it's kind of what we've been doing all along. It is remote influencing. We tend to heal people. We tend to do things that are positive. People, move into a city and don't have any friends. So we do a group meditation. We all meditate that they find good friends soon. And then
That's
it
cool.
happens. And then it
That's cool.
happens. It manifests. Like, my life is terrible right now, and my job sucks. I need a better job. We all meditate on it, and it happens. These things, it's amazing. But most of the time, it's healing. Somebody's sore, mom's sick, somebody's sick, and we heal. We do a meditation on them. We cover them with a blue light and positive intentions, and we ask, we protect ourselves when we go in, and we all do it at the same time, the same moment on the clock, and we have stunning results every week. I don't think they'd all lie to me. So everybody, I don't think they'd all come in and say, Tony, I'm great. I think if it didn't work, they'd say something. So
Right.
most of the time we have really, really, really good results, and every time we have good results.
Exactly, and I think that's amazing. But one other thing I want to point out that we didn't talk about being in that INYOKERN, in that town, or Ridgecrest, when we were driving around town, like you were also pointing out things that you remembered, like they took us through this checkpoint or this guard station, and you remember being on the bus and all the kids. The recall was coming back throughout town, not just at INYOKERN Airport.
And around there, so it's very distant. They're very distant memories, like your childhood. Anybody would go back. If somebody lived in a place until they were 10 years old and then moved away, and then after they were 50, went back to visit that place, it would kind of come back and kind of not. And that's kind of where I was with that riding through Ridgecrest, because it was only really one time that I went through there.
Yeah.
And but yeah, that was true. I was having heavy flashback. The main thing is the vibe. It was weird back then, and it's my theory that everybody that's living in that town is an experiment.
I think
you
so.
were pointing out the drum. You've done shows, Journey to, like, I haven't watched all your shows, but you've done shows where you said people were talking about the voice of God technology and some of the other technology, that those big drums on the 5G towers. And I have never, in a town this small, I'm going to get the population on it. In a town that small, I've never seen so many 5G towers concentrated. It was like you're never a stone's throw away from a different 5G tower, and every other one had one of those big drums that you said were voice of God tech. And then everybody there was a Latino. It was a heavy Latino population, so people that may have immigrated or came through illegally that they put there, and they're being experimented on. Like, it's my opinion and my hunch that that's a test bed for social.
Well, I believe so, and there's been enough people that come forward that the 20 and back can happen in one night. You can, I mean, not 20 years, but you can literally do 8 hours and back.
That's right.
And I think that's what happens in those towns. Donald Marshall used to talk about it. They would, abduct the consciousness during the REM state of sleep and put you in a clone body and have you do something in the middle of the night and put you back. And like, it would be a nightly thing. It wouldn't be like one night and it's one and done. And Charles Hall, who talks about the tall white, he was stationed at, I forget which Air Force base, near Nellis. I don't know. He remembers, he has his memory of being on the military base and then taken in the middle of the night and to work with these ETs underground and then brought back. And this was a nightly thing, but it was happening to other guys on the base, but they didn't have their memories. They were clueless to it.
Randy Kramer said the same thing. Many people that have reached out to me and I've worked with them on timelines say the same thing. They were taken a couple times at young ages, 3 and 4 years old. They were taken for 2 or 3 days and put back. And they'd tell their mom and dad about it. And then months later, they'd be taken again and put back. And then finally, later on in their early teens, taken for the long duration.
Right.
Randy Kramer said the same thing. I think those are people being groomed for the service. And I wasn't. I was a spur of the moment, which is probably why I remember, because I was not groomed going into it. I just looked it up. China Lake and Ridgecrest together have about just under 30,000 people living there.
That's not. And it's pretty spread out. It's like
it's very spread out. It's like 2 cities. So 15,000, 20,000 on one side, 10,000 on the other, plus a military base. But there's nothing 100 miles from anywhere else. That's that sign that says 100 miles from everywhere. So I believe it's an experiment. It's a warfare experimental town. It was the weirdest vibe ever.
The question is, what happened to us while we were sleeping?
Right. So I was afraid of that too. I was like half locking the door.
To be honest, the very first night when I was trying to go to sleep, I was being nudged by something. Like I was like, my body was nudged right as I was falling asleep, and I rolled over, and it was like some etheric like entity or whatever. And I had to write it off the first time and tell myself that it was just a body. My body twitched, but it felt like I've been laying on my side. It felt like somebody just kind of nudged me, and then when I rolled over, I felt it again, and then I couldn't fall asleep after that. I'm like, okay, I started, like not panicking, but you gotta like do the clearings and stuff. But I eventually fell asleep, and the next night was fine. But I just wonder. I mean, they knew we were there, and maybe nothing happened. Maybe it was maybe my
I hope
muscle was
so.
twitching. Yeah.
I was out like a light both nights. I slept like a baby. I was completely out. I remember I was out on before I hit the pillow asleep both nights. So slept really good. If anything, I'm more worried about now, like now that I uncovered this stuff and I'm heavily researching it. I keep getting weird phone calls from Baker, California, and from Southern California in that area. I keep getting solicited. It's like possible spam, and I
Right.
ignore it, and then it's a message that I've for financing. So it's probably an automatic thing for their AI for people that visit and
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying, like show up on the GPS on your phone, so then they spy on your phone to see what's going on. They're just going to see my horrible taste in YouTube videos and
Right.
my glaring porn habit. But that's what the military is going to see. There's nothing. There's no high tech stuff in there. But there's you people. So there are you. So Talks with Tony and other shows that I've been on. So this is new evidence. It's not easy to explain in one breath or even in one presentation. So I'm going to get good at it, and it's led me down the trail of research around the dates of what I remember. So from what I can tell now, it was a contractor. It was a private. They sold the tech, a private contractor that had access, and they just ran us through and they used us. They sold psychics clones, what they thought were clones, which I was something else than that. Other than that, even if I was clone, they sold off psychic kids for service to do whatever they want. And I ended up drug running for the, we all know it's the CIA. They call it the Cocaine and Import Agency. So they would have clearance. The pieces are all there. So it's just to connect the dots. There's got to be a paper trail somewhere.
Mhm.
Whether I find it or not remains to be seen.
Yeah.
So
And let's talk about how much fun we had too. Like we enjoyed the hell out of it that trip.
we had a blast, Tyler. You were great to hang out with. You threw me for a loop. We were when we were in the gas station in Baker on the way back, Baker, California, and the guy behind us in line goes, "Where are you guys from?" And you said, "Oh, we just got married." Put me on the spot. I went. I just rolled with it. I didn't want to say anything, like
God.
it didn't hurt, but it was
Uh,
hilarious. Like I said, but we had a
yeah.
good time. I got some cool souvenirs there. I got got us some shirts, and it was a good trip. And then we went back. I saw the Sphere. I got drone footage of the Sphere in Vegas, and stayed there, and got to see some old friends too while I was there, which was awesome. And got to hang out. Here's one thing that I'll say on that note. Every time that you picked somewhere to go eat, it was amazing. And as soon as you left the day before I did. You left on Friday, and I left Saturday. I flew out Saturday. As soon as you left, everywhere I went to eat was horrible. I went to this dive place. It looked good on the map, and I went to this dive place, and I thought, I'm just going to see it through. I'm not going to walk out now that I realized that their food's probably terrible. And it was the worst meal I've had in ages. But
Oh,
and
no.
then it happened again for breakfast. Like every time you picked a spot, every time we settled on a spot, it was a good restaurant.
Mhm.
And for the rest of my trip, I ate terribly. So there's something to be said. So that's a talent, man. That's a skill you might not be aware you have.
Right. I just led to it. I'm like, I don't know. This place looks good. Uh, no, I know it was a heavy emotional trip for you, but I did enjoy it, and it was fun getting to hang out with you and spend more time, get to know each other better. And man, we were driving at one point. I was like, man, hanging out with you is like doing a 24-hour interview. I mean, we never stopped talking.
That's
I
right.
don't think we stopped talking the whole time.
Great. So it was very rare that I get to spend time with somebody that's as knowledgeable in the truth community, like in the subjects of the secret space program, the government, the military industrial complex, all of it, what's going on. You just have such a body of work behind Journey to the Truth. You have a lot of information. And then me being a speaker and going to like I've seen a lot of things behind the scenes. I know people, and I hear scuzzle. There's a lot of things that we promise to people tell me and say don't tell anybody, and I don't tell people. And so
Right.
but you learn from it and the history of it. So there are still you learn by hearing what happens behind the scenes at these conferences and on the shows when you're off camera, the things we talk about. So there's a lot of information that unfortunately the audience doesn't get to see that we got to download. So that was really cool, man. And I learned a lot from you too, definitely. I was actually I don't want to say shocked or surprised, but I was like, I didn't expect it when you were pointing. It's like, see those? Everywhere. That's where deep underground bases. We had somebody on a show that talked about that, and you were pointing out stuff that I was completely unaware of that made perfect sense.
Yeah, well, thank you. I mean, that's what happens when you have this conversation every week for 5 years in a row hosting a podcast.
Pretty much, yeah.
And
exactly.
it becomes your reality, and you can't not see it anymore. So you look at everything through a new lens. And there were times, what impressed me was when we went out and skywatched that night, you knew the whole fucking sky. Pardon my language. Like every star, every constellation, every planet, you're just like, bam, bam. And then you knew the story, like, oh, she's dancing and he's the fool, and blah. I'm like,
I have astronomy. I have a love for astronomy, as you might guess. So
yeah.
I think on a certain level, when I was a kid, I missed it. And like, there's another thing. So I would say this, and I would hope that everybody gets to experience it sooner or later. But even though my situation was dire and I was basically slave labor and it was a very lowly existence, I still got to go into space and stand there and look. We were deep space and look out the window and see the star field in its reality, see the nature of space in its reality. And it's something that I think that 100% of us would absolutely fall in love with. And I missed it. And so there's no leaving it. It's like the ocean. It's the same love affair that one has with the ocean. There's no looking at the ocean and not being oppressed. If you really, I feel sorry for you if that's what your life is like. But I think everybody that goes to the beach and looks out in the ocean is a sense of awe. And space is the exact same way. And you miss the ocean. I moved inland and you miss it. So it's the same. It was the same thing. So here I didn't know what was going on. And I always had a love for that. And I went into astronomy and I learned the stars and then got my memories back and thought, oh shit, I've been there. I've been to that one.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a fun conversation. I remember that night thinking, man, like if we should be recording this. That's what I was thinking. Like our conversations, it would have been some great A+ content.
Very cool. So I'm gonna wrap. There's a little bit more, but like I said, I'm gonna be unpacking this information over the next year, for years probably. So this trip, there was a lot we did. And there's a lot that I'm showing here that I probably shouldn't. So already, I'm gonna go ahead and wrap, and hopefully I have you back, man. And thanks for everything you're doing with Journey to Truth. You know as well as I do that it's hard to determine what's the truth. So present everything you can, and the audience is brilliant. They're going to sort it out, and time will tell. So that's what time has done for me. I came out and I got thrown under the bus by a lot of people in the community. But you know what? Time has validated me, and the truth is something that comes out over time. You're not going to get it all in one blow. So just stay with it. We're in this for the long haul.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree with that. And thanks for having me on. This was a blast. And, obviously anytime.
Absolutely. Okay. See you guys again soon.